Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Beck and I am a social worker for communities and schools of Greater Tarrant County, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about anger management. I do want to mention that this video is sort of a follow-up video to anger management for kids video that was already recorded. And so I definitely encourage you to watch that video before you watch this video because I'll be referencing it a little bit. In the other video, which was geared towards children, we kind of talk about what anger is and how we can identify what anger feels like in our physical individual bodies. The idea that anger is often a manifestation of other things that are going on below the surface, such as fear or feeling embarrassed or even just being hungry. And we also went over a few calm down techniques that children could use, like going outside or doing some physical activity or talking it out calmly with an adult. So again, I encourage you to watch that one before you watch this one. This one is going to be geared more towards parents and those that work with children. So we're going to go a little bit further. So when we talk about in the other video, encouraging children to talk things out calmly with an adult, we have to make sure as the adult in the situation that we have created a space that is okay for them to do. In a space that they feel like is okay for them to do that. And by that, I mean we have to make sure that we make it possible for them to share their feelings without fear of condemnation or being embarrassed. And that means that our response to their anger has to create a safe place for them. And largely the way that we do that is by the language that we use. And by that I mean, it's really easy, and I say this as a parent of two little ones and someone that works with elementary age students every day. It's very easy for us sometimes in our adult perspective of things to kind of minimize the reasons behind that children may feel anger or frustration, and we might just our gut reaction respond using language like, you don't need to be mad about that, or that's not worth being mad about, or you need to stop being mad right now. And when we say things like that, it's not very helpful to children, as well as it wouldn't be helpful to us as adults either. If another adult told me when I was frustrated, you don't need to be mad about it, stop being mad right now, it probably wouldn't ease my frustration. It would probably increase my frustration either with that person or the situation. So it's really important for us to remember that the things that we say to our children while they're angry should not be things that would fuel our anger if we were the ones in that position. And so we want to use language that acknowledges their right to have an emotion, and including the emotion of being angry or being mad. But we also want to make sure that we establish or reinforce the expectations that have already been previously expressed to the child in whatever situation that it is in. And by that I mean maybe a child that doesn't want to leave a playground and they feel very upset about that and they want to react negatively in their anger towards that. It might be really easy for a parent or someone working with a child to kind of just be like, well, tough, it's time to leave the playground and you're going to have to get over it. But instead, we want to try to use the language that acknowledges their feelings. We want to maybe say, I know it can be really upsetting when we have to leave the playground, but it's time for us to go. But let's see if we can count how many steps it takes us to get to the car. Or how about on the way back to the car, we talk about what song we're going to listen to on the drive home. Kind of giving them a what's next, what's to look forward to after this situation has finished, but also really acknowledging that it is okay for them to feel angry and how are we going to process that and get through that together, and that you're there to help them to get through that. A couple of other maybe popular say this, not that kind of scenarios might be, instead of saying, how many times have I told you not to hit your sister? We might try instead to say something like, you're feeling angry. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt people. And so I'm going to move you away from your sister to separate you from her for right now. Or maybe saying, instead of hitting, let's use our words to tell her why you're upset with her, and let's make sure that she's all right. Another really common one might be, don't yell at me. We often as parents can respond to our children yelling at us with yelling back at them, and that could be really, really counterproductive. So maybe instead of responding as in don't yell at me or don't yell at your sibling, instead we can try to say, I know that you're yelling because you're upset, but it makes it very hard for me to help you, or it makes it very hard for me to understand what you need whenever you're yelling. So I want to help you, but can you try to match my volume? And for a little kid, they might not understand match my volume, but you can rephrase that to any way that feels natural to you between you and your child. So it could be like, can you talk as quietly as mommy is talking right now? Or something like that. But just basically trying to model the tone that we want our children to use when they're frustrated can be very key to teaching them how they can verbalize their frustration. And we can also practice self-exploration ourselves. If you do watch the previous video, you could even do some of the activities that are in that video yourself. And it might seem silly because they're like geared towards children, but they can be really, really informative for ourselves to get some clear just knowledge of ourselves. And by that I mean we can do the evaluation of what does my body feel like when I start to get angry, and what are my triggers, what are my initial feelings of anger that I start to notice before it escalates to the next level of being truly, truly angry. Because one of the key things I want to share with you is that an escalated adult cannot de-escalate a child that is also in an escalated mood or level. And by that I mean, if your child is reacting on a really high, severe level to a situation, and you are matching their reaction on a high level, you're going to be stuck at this level. We as the adult in the situation need to find a way to reach a calm state and bring our reaction down a level so that that child can then match us, and we can move forward in a calm state together. So if we don't know how to bring ourselves down, then we're not going to be able to assist that child in coming down with us. So I really encourage parents or those that work with children to practice their own calming techniques, privately of course, but also in front of the children, because we know that children learn by observing and they will imitate what they see around them. And so we want to model what it looks like to handle anger in a healthy way in front of our children so that they can then learn from that, observe that, and imitate that. So some of the calming techniques that you might want to try as a parent might be talking it out calmly, like what we said, maybe with another adult or with yourself. That might even look like talking it out calmly, just an internal dialogue, or it could be, actual verbal dialogue, closing your eyes, breathing, counting, or even just taking a momentary break from the situation and coming back when you have reached a calm state. And obviously I want to add there that that's only an option if the child is in a safe environment, as in if we're talking about the scenario I mentioned earlier of a child that doesn't want to leave the playground, it would not be safe for a parent to momentarily leave the situation until they reach a calm state and then return. But it might benefit the parent to maybe sit on a bench where they're still in view of the child and in close range of the child, and just kind of focus on themselves for a second in their own level of emotion that they're feeling, and get themselves to a calm state before they reapproach the child about leaving, or before they even initially approach the child about leaving if they're anticipating that it's going to be a struggle. I also wanted to add just a few quick reminders, going off of what I just said. Also, oftentimes we can anticipate when our child is going to become upset, because we know our children, or we know our students if you're someone working in a school system. And oftentimes it comes during transition. Children have a really hard time with transitions. And they have an even harder time if they don't see the transition coming. And so one of the big things that you can do is to prepare your child for any type of transition ahead of time. Yes, that could mean something, a big transition like a move, or a new school or something like that, or what we're going through right now during the COVID pandemic, like the closing of school and then coming back to school, or the homeschool. Those are all really, really significant transitions on a really large scale that we can try to help our children process by talking to them about it and preparing them for it as much as we can, because the situation is ever changing. But it can also be really minor transitions, like leaving the park, or like it's time to stop this activity so that we can have lunch, or it's time for bed is obviously a very common one that kids have a hard time with. But we can assist them, A, by setting routines, because children thrive in routines, and then B, by preparing them for the transition in advance. So with the bedtime thing, it might look like this is our routine that we have set of: we take a bath, we put on our pajamas, and then we brush our teeth, and then we read a book, and then it's lights out. And that's our routine that we're going to go through every single night. And if you don't, have a routine for certain parts of your day, I encourage you to get some routines. And there is always some growing pain when you're implementing a new routine, either at home or in, if you're working with a child in your workplace. But that doesn't mean that the routine is not beneficial. It's natural to feel some growing pains at first, in the same way that we might feel growing pains when we're trying to add routines to our own life, like going to the gym more, or things like that. The routine is still beneficial. It does take up a little bit of a painful time to get to where the routine becomes normal. But when you have established a routine, being able to say, okay, 10 more minutes, and then it's bath time, or it may be in the bath, okay, we're going to do this and this, it's time to wash your hair, and then after we wash your hair, it's going to be time to get out of the bath. Or now it's time to put our jammies on. Right after we put our jammies on, we're going to go brush our teeth, and then we're going to get in bed and read our books. But letting the child know what is to come, and maybe even if it's a child that can comprehend time, then even telling them, we have 5 minutes left of this activity. We have 10 minutes left until this is going to happen. Same thing with being at the park. We have 10 minutes left of being at the park, and then we're going to move on and do this and this with our day. And then next, trying to give choices as much as possible. And I know there are certain things that are like, this is what it is, and it is concrete, and there's no way to give a choice in the matter. But I encourage you to just think a little bit outside the box and think about what kind of choices you can provide to your child. Like in this scenario that we just went over, bedtime, maybe, saying after we get out of the bath, we're going to put jammies on. Which jammies would you like to wear? Which pajamas would you like to wear? Would you like to wear these striped pajamas, or would you like to wear these red pajamas? And giving them really just minor choices like that don't affect your routine, but it does just make them feel like they are a part of it, and they have a little bit of control of how the routine is going. Even if it's something, like we're leaving the park. No, we have to leave the park. There's no choice about it. But you might be able to say, it's time to leave the park, but you can choose what song we listen to whenever we get into the car. Or you can choose if we should skip back to the car, or if we should hop back like bunny rabbits, or, whatever is natural for you in your situation with that child. And always remember that anger is not a bad emotion. That is not mad, is what I like to say. Anger is a natural emotion that everyone feels. Children, adults, we all feel angry sometimes. Being angry is never a reason to condemn a child or be upset with a child for feeling that, or making them feel ashamed to be angry, in the same way that we wouldn't want our anger to make us feel ashamed. Obviously, angry only becomes a negative emotion whenever we react in really severely negative ways, such as like harming someone or harming ourselves. And so I just want to encourage that we shouldn't try to shut down anger as soon as it happens, because it is a natural feeling that we do need to feel sometimes, in the same way that we need to feel joy and we need to feel sadness sometimes. All of our emotions are necessary and not bad. And then lastly, just to remember that anger is a blanket response. If we go back to the iceberg activity in the other video, there is always something deeper that is going on. For myself, it has taken years of me to practice self-evaluation to realize that I am a person that tends to get hangry, and if I am feeling very hungry, I am also very grumpy. The hungrier I am, the grumpier I am. And that has taken some friends and family informing me of that about myself, and me practicing some self-evaluation, that now when I start feeling grumpy or agitated, I might think to myself, I'm feeling really easily agitated right now. I think I need to have a snack. And it usually does the trick for me. And children are often the same way. There's usually something below the surface that's happening. Always make sure first that the basic needs are being met, as in food and adequate sleep, because those two things will make anyone grumpy of any age, I think, if you're not getting enough rest and not getting enough nutrition. But also, there can be other things going on below the surface that are a little bit more complicated, like feeling embarrassed or feeling envious or feeling scared or having anxiety about situations. So please just remember that anger is not, a reflection of you as a parent or you as a professional working with the child. It is some other things going on below the surface, and to just keep that in mind when working with children. And it can be a very vulnerable thing to explore your feelings and to share angry feelings, even in a safe place and with a safe person. For adults and for children, it can be very vulnerable. So make sure that we can be sensitive to that for ourselves, for other adults that we interact with, and also for the children that we have in our lives as well. I hope that you guys got something good out of this video. I hope it was informative or encouraging to you in some way. I do want to add a disclaimer again that this is not a substitute for therapy and is not meant to be used as therapy. It is just an informative video. So please make sure that your intent in viewing it is not to use it as therapy or a substitute for that. But I do hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out with me again today. Bye.